All right, thanks, John.
Make yourselves comfortable. We're off to our next morning meeting this morning. It's great to see everybody come out today. This morning we have a really special session put on by Savings Bank of Danbury. There are a number of folks from that organization here, and they're going to tell us about special loan programs and many other things. So we're really looking forward to that this morning. I would like to introduce George Harry. He's the Vice President of Retail Banking at Savings Bank of Danbury. George, welcome.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
We've got some great coffee soup ones out here. I love that. Well, good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber for letting us sponsor the event this morning. And I wear several hats this morning. First is with Savings Bank of Danbury, Vice President of Retail Banking, and I get the pleasure of working with branch managers like Sharon Maynard here in Newtown, my favorite branch. I've been through for 20 years. Sharon's my best manager, and she put this all together. I said it everywhere I go. Just kidding. Also wearing my United Way hat today. I am chair of the Financial Resource Center, which is a fairly new program offered through the United Way, and we have Karen Mello here who runs the program, the United Way. She's going to talk about that for about 5 minutes. And the majority of the program, we're lucky enough to have Tom Shoup here with us this morning from Franklin Templeton to give us a talk on Global is the New Core. And he was brought in by our financial advisor, Bob Peckham, who works out of our Brookfield office. He's with Infinex Financial Group. That's where we offer our investment services through, as does Newtown Savings and Fairfield County Bank, so that you might know the name Infinex. So thank you, Bob, for bringing Tom in. So I'm not going to steal Karen's thunder, but basically the Financial Resource Center is a new resource that's available in northern Fairfield County for anyone. It's not available to just select groups. And we have a unique opportunity in Newtown where we had an anonymous donor give us money to offer this program. It's financial coaching, both on a one-on-one basis and at a company level. But the stipulation was the money had to be used in Newtown for a Newtown company or companies. And I know we have CL&P on board. They're going to be doing some of the programs, but we want to get the message out to the chamber members that no matter how big or small you are, if your employees need some help or just want some education, some financial education, we can do that for them free of charge, add a benefit to them, go from there. So, Karen? Do you need help passing?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Karen Mello, and I am the Director of Community Impact at United Way of Western Connecticut. And one of my roles at United Way is to help low to middle income families with their financial stability. And under that, we have formed the Financial Resource Center. The mission of the Financial Resource Center, like George was saying, is financial literacy education. And we do that in a couple of ways in the community. One way that we do that is we engage our volunteer financial coaches. We have volunteers who have the finance background and the expertise that volunteer their time to go out and to provide workshops in the community. They provide workshops on budgeting, on savings, on credit, or any other financial topic that you might be interested in. And in addition to that, our volunteer financial coaches sit one-on-one with residents in the community to help them with their personal finances. They meet with them for about 4 to 6 months, about once a month, to help them implement a household budget, to decrease expenses, to increase income and savings, to understand their credit, how to access their credit report, what is my score, and how do I improve that. So basically, the volunteers are sitting one-on-one with our families and helping them understand their personal finances and how to improve that. To date, we have coached 32 households in the northern Fairfield and southern Richfield communities. And out of those 32 households, we've had 18 households complete the program. And out of those that have completed the program, we have nearly 80% that were able to set up and implement a household budget. We have about 60% of our families who were able to decrease expenses. 25% were able to increase income and savings. We actually had 2 families gain employment while being in the financial coaching program. And 1 family who bought a home as a result of working with a financial coach. This was a single dad, and he didn't understand that he was paying rent, but that he could be paying the same amount or a little bit more buying a house and getting those deductions for his real estate taxes and interest. And he was also having his taxes over withheld. So he didn't understand as well that he could decrease that to get a little cash back throughout the year, and in fact it was about $6,000 throughout the year. He started getting that back in his monthly paychecks, and that helped him to afford to move from an apartment to a small home. So we've been making a big difference in people's lives. The coaching and the workshops are all free because our program costs are covered by donations from individuals and from companies. And like George was saying, one of the reasons why I'm here today is because we had an individual donor, an anonymous donor, who did give us some program funding to cover workshops and one-on-one coaching specifically for Newtown residents, Newtown employers, Newtown employees who wants to see those dollars spent here in Newtown. So with that being said, our program costs are covered, and I wanted to share with you today, I've got several things here to share with you besides my business cards, which have all my contact information. I have our brochures, which is the Meet with a Volunteer Financial Coach. After all of our workshops, we encourage all the folks to come into the one-on-one coaching because that's when we really feel like we can do the work. You know, the workshops are great and we improve residents' knowledge, but with that one-on-one coaching, we can really make a difference in people's lives with their finances. So this is all about the one-on-one financial coaching program. Also, I've got, in case there's anyone here today that is interested in becoming a financial coach, if this speaks to you as a volunteer opportunity, we'd love to have you join us. And I also have a couple of surveys that we use. So one of these, actually, let's start with this one, is an employee survey. So for folks that are here today, if you want to take some of these back with you to your employees, to your HR department, and see if you can circulate this and see if there's an interest to bring in a workshop either on budgeting, which is, again, tracking your daily spending, decreasing expenses, setting up that budget, savings, and or credit, or we're happy to come out for any other financial topics as well. So if you would like to gauge an interest in your companies and let us know what the interest is. And I also have another form here for you as well, and that is a company form. So if your company is interested in a particular workshop, you can email me this or fax this to me, and we'll be happy to set that up. We have 13 financial coaches, I forgot to mention that. They're all fabulous, and they all have different skill sets. So if there's something in particular that you're looking for, we can bring in someone for that workshop as well. So thank you all for your time. And if you have any other questions for me, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure, that'd be great. So if you want to start with me and come.
We do have a couple bilingual coaches, right? Karen?
All right, thank you.
Karen? We do have a couple bilingual.
Oh, yeah, we have a bilingual coach, and we're always looking for more. So if anyone knows of any Spanish-speaking financial people, we always call them out for sure.
Coach? So these are both coach. They're the same.
I run one for the employers, spring to.
Unique. They're the same. They're both coach. Coach too. Oh, sorry. There was one that was coach and one that wasn't?
Yeah, there's actually with the financial coach and the.
Oh.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Meet or become? You want to become? You want to meet or become?
Well, I'll take it to the office. Which one did I give you?
Oh, this is for the staff?
That's the staff, the survey. We want to pass that out to the staff.
One's
Okay.
meet.
That's fine.
There's a meet. I'm not going to become. Get one of them. You got one. Which one? You got meet. Become. Become. Hello. Hi there. You're welcome. Just become. Bottom one. Huh? You got meat?
I don't want to be.
No, I don't.
You probably already have. It'll just assign it. Oh, you want the meat? Make sure they're both meat. Meat and become?
Thank you, Karen.
Yep.
Did everybody get one of these brochures?
Did everybody get one of these? Here, can I have one? Can I have one of yours, please?
Well, good morning again. Once again, my name is Bob Peckham. I'm with Infinex Financial Group located at the Savings Bank at Danbury. And I have Tom Shoup with Franklin Templeton with me today. Tom's been with Franklin since 1997, and he's been in the financial services industry since 1989. And that's when I broke into the industry as well. And I've been utilizing Franklin Templeton for over 20 years, so I was actually using his funds before he even came on board with Franklin Templeton. So I've had a lot of success with Franklin Templeton in my career. They've done a great job for my clients, protecting assets as well as growing them. And right now, Franklin's got a big focus on global investing, and they've got a great piece that we've handed out to everybody, and Tom Shoup is going to talk about the opportunities that are out there in the globe right now. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me, first and foremost. My role at Franklin Templeton, well, first I'll start with my title. I'm technically called a Vice President and Senior Advisor and Consultant. What does that really mean to you? My job, simply put, is to keep individuals like Bob informed and updated as to what our money managers are in fact doing with the various mutual funds and other accounts that we manage, and what we're seeing and what we're thinking, simply put. And of course to come out and support events such as like this to help educate everybody on the good news that is out there within the global economy. How many of you have seen a headline or heard a headline on the radio or the broadcast media that is rather negative? Have we heard any of those over the past 24 hours? Yeah. How many of you have heard advertisements for some type of an investment or financial product that gets you away from the Wall Street casino? Have we heard that one before too? Well, simply put, we believe that there is a big difference between investing and speculating. Now, if you want to speculate on stocks, you can then, of course, consider the stock exchanges and Wall Street to be a casino. If you want to be a meticulous long-term investor that creates wealth and at the same time protects some wealth, then you would probably want to be a long-term investor. So there's a big difference, and I think that's very important. And that's something that's not necessarily commented on in the financial media. So it comes down to education, and knowing the differences between these things. How many of you have heard of Franklin Templeton before? Great, that's music to my ears. Simply put, we are three separate and autonomous money managers under one corporate umbrella, and that actually is kind of an antiquated description of us. We now have several dozens of different money managers under one corporate umbrella, but primarily we are Franklin, which is based in San Mateo, California. They are best known for managing domestic equity and domestic bond mutual funds dating back to the 1940s. In 1992, they acquired the Templeton Group of Funds, which is today still based in Nassau, the Bahamas, and the name Templeton is really synonymous with global and international investing. How many of you have heard the name John Templeton or Sir John Templeton? A couple of you. Google him. He was the Warren Buffett before there was a Warren Buffett. And then finally in 1996 we acquired the Mutual Series family of funds out of Short Hills, New Jersey. They are best described as opportunistic value investors that really strive to reduce risk, because when they go to buy a stock or a bond, they're trying to buy a dollar's worth of value for 50 cents. And that's how they protect on the downside. That's who we are. We manage $870 billion. We are one of the largest mutual fund families in the industry. And really what I would like to do today is just kind of, share what I call a good news book about what is happening out there in the global economy and why, as an individual investor, you would want to consider investing more globally or more internationally. So we're going to use this brochure as a guide for us, but really, if you look at page 1, there's really 4 themes in this brochure. Number 1, we're going to talk about how the world is changing and really kind of outline the global opportunity. We'll talk about how the world is much more connected than ever before, and I think that many of you probably have a device that looks something like this, right? So we'll use this as an example. And then we'll talk a little bit about you as individual investors, as your portfolio is global as perhaps it should be. And then finally, how global is truly core to everything we do at Franklin Templeton. If you open up to the brochure to the next page, you'll see a little graph like this here on the left-hand side, and it talks about the world's middle class. The world's middle class is growing exponentially. It is projected that by 2025 we'll have 3.8 billion individuals across the globe that is considered to be middle class. However, unfortunately, if you look abroad and compare it to what is happening here in the developed Western world, the middle class in our country is actually shrinking, unfortunately. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the overall growth of global demand for goods and services, it is anticipated that 80% of that global growth in demand is going to come from Asia alone. We're not even talking about Latin America, the Middle East, or North Africa, which of course are very big population bases around the globe. 80% of the growth in global demand for goods and services is expected to come from Asia alone by 2025. That is a huge, huge number. And really what's happening in Asia is very dynamic and very positive, because you now have people that are using cell phones, automobiles, medical devices, disposable diapers for the very, very first time. So when you think of the United States and Canada and developed Europe, you really think of mature markets as like, what else can we sell over there? Can we sell any more widgets, cell phones, or television sets? And the reality is we don't need to, because there is a huge growing market overseas, and that's the point. I'm going to give you an example. There is a company, perhaps you've heard of it, it's called Becton Dickinson. They are a medical device manufacturer out of New Jersey. And they have been around for over 50 years. And what they simply do is they make, one of the big products they have are syringes. They have pre-filled measurements of medicine. Call it penicillin, 100 milliliters of penicillin. And basically what a healthcare worker will do is they'll take this, this syringe, which is really nothing but plastic casted, devices, fill it up with penicillin, put a needle to it, and they have an exact measurement of dosage that the patient will require. Now, it's very convenient for the worker. It helps the hospital reduce malpractice issues, because the medical worker may make a mistake and fill it up with 113 milliliters, or maybe not enough and it's 82 milliliters, as opposed to that exact 100 milliliters, or whatever the measurement may be. So, administrators really like it because it can help cut down the mistakes, which lead, of course, to malpractice. So Becton Dickinson is, in fact, creating new market share overseas in the emerging markets. And simply put, the new middle class in Asia and Latin America, it's now in vogue to get your children immunized. How do you do that? Well, with a pre-measured amount of medicine coming from a company like Becton Dickinson, a US-based corporation. So that's just a quick story on how these things are happening. When you look to the next page over here on page 3, we talk a little bit more about that, and we talk about more disposable income. I mean, as as you know, a population or a demographic grows from the lower socioeconomic classes into the middle class and up the ladder, so to speak, they have more disposable income for stuff. TVs, cell phones, automobiles, you know, new ties, whatever, or immunizations. And you can see, you know, at the graph at the bottom, if you take a look at China and their internet users, you know, China is a country with 1.3 billion person population. And if you look, 33 or 38% of the population has access to the internet. Now, we don't necessarily need to double that or make it close to 80 or, you know, or 90% like we enjoy here in the United States. Take that 38, bring it to 48, you know, and how much more computers, smartphones, and everything that goes into the infrastructure for the internet, how much more of that do you need to purchase if you're overseas, and what companies would be selling that technology to a country like China? Maybe it's being created in China. There's a lot going on over there as well. So, you know, this just kind of takes a look at consumerism in a sample set of countries and the percentage of their population that has access to something. If you flip the page, you'll see, of course, the iPhone. You know, we all know about Apple, right? They've got great innovative products. The stock has done very, very well. It's a well-known story, is it not? If you like Apple, and you think Apple is a good investment, and it may or may not be an appropriate investment for you or anyone you know, that's something for Bob to help figure out. But let's just assume it's a great investment, which it is. Why not also invest in the supply chain that makes that iPhone? And as you can see here from this graphic, Samsung makes the processor. They're a Korean company. You look at Bosch and the accelerometer coming from Germany. Toshiba making the flash memory. The gyroscope coming from a Swiss company. So if Apple is going to sell, you know, hundreds of millions of units worldwide of the iPhone, it makes sense that Samsung's going to sell hundreds of millions of units of the processor to build that iPhone. So just an example, pretty basic example, you get it. But if you take a look about how our world is more connected, and you take a look at Facebook. Facebook would be the second most populous country in the world if it were its own country. That's how many users are on Facebook. I, for one, believe it or not, do not have a Facebook profile. I'm not a big social media guy unless it's LinkedIn for business purposes. I live vicariously through my wife who loves Facebook, but I'm one of the few. But there's that many people out there using Facebook. And then, of course, when you look at U.S. companies, I shared the story of Becton Dickinson a moment ago. A big percentage of these S&P 500 companies' revenues coming from somewhere other than the United States. So if we are worried, in fact, about the U.S. economy on the short term or medium term, the question might be, what's the economy of this country, or this country that this particular company does business in? Whether it's Becton Dickinson or Apple or Chevron or you know, pick a company. And you can see here at the bottom of page 7 the percentage of those revenues for those individual companies. Coca-Cola, 55%. Avon, 85% of the revenue comes from somewhere else other than the United States. Amazing, isn't it? When you flip this page, you know, reason number 3 is your portfolio is global as it should be. This is page 6 and 7. This is perhaps my favorite part of the story. And that is, simply put, the opportunity set has changed since the mid-1980s and 1985. If you go back to 1985 and you look here at the pie chart, you will see that over 50% of all opportunities to invest in stock around the world originated here in the United States of America. However, today, it's 35%. That number has shrunk because there are corporations around the globe that are issuing publicly traded stock that we can potentially invest in. So the opportunity set is no longer just dominated by the United States. You have to open up your eyes. And John Templeton, the founder of the Templeton side of our funds, he said, you know, if you want better results, you have to do things differently than the crowd. So if the crowd is just investing in one stock or one industry or one country, then you're going to get the same results as the crowd. If you want better results than the crowd or better results than the market, you need to really look outside your home country borders. When you look at bonds, you know, we call that fixed income in our industry. the same story. Back in 1985, you can see 52% of all opportunities to invest in a bond, and when you invest in a bond, you're loaning somebody money. When you buy a stock, of course, you're a part ownership in that corporation. The same is true, and today, less than 30% of all bond issues originate here in the United States. And if you just think about the amount of debt our country has, you know, there are many countries around the globe, believe it or not, a country like Ukraine, they have a debt to GDP ratio of 40. Does anybody know what our debt to GDP ratio is here in the United States? It's about 106. So, granted, the Ukraine has the GDP of maybe Rhode Island, but they're not carrying a lot of debt in proportion to the size of their economy, whereas other developed nations are, and there might be some you know, corporations that reside overseas that are good credits. And then when you look at the markets themselves, the first block up on page 7 takes a look at what we call developed stock markets. So that's you know, that's going to be European nations, you know, Canada, United States, Australia. And you can see, going back just 5 years, where the United States ranked in any of those years. And what we're measuring here is from January 1st of the calendar year to December 31st, the percentage increase that country's stock market went up. That's all we're measuring. And then we're stack ranking it, you know, so the highest percentage increase is number 1, the second highest, etc. And you'll see in 2013, the United States was number 3. We had a very good year last year. Can anyone tell me what the S&P 500 was up in calendar year 2013? Right around 30%, yep, significantly. But if you look, you know, in 2012 we were 15, we were number 3 in 11, we were 17 in 09, and 2009, you remember 2008, 2009?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bad years, would you say? Can anyone tell me what the market was up here in the United States in 2009? Or was it down? Down in 2009?
No, it was nice.
2009, it was up 26.5%.
From 8.
For the calendar year. You know, first January 1st of 09, yeah, it was up 26.5%.
From the calendar year of 08.
No, where the index measured on January 1st or closing December 31st of 08, that measurement, whatever the number was, not the percentage. And then a year later, it was up 26, yes. So from the year before, when the year before it was down 37, 38%. But in everyone's mind, they still remembered all the bad news and how the market was imploding in 2008. So we actually did an investor sentiment survey towards the end of 2009, and over 66% of the respondents said that the market was down in 2009 when it was in fact up, because they were still thinking about 2008 and all the bad news that still existed, and there certainly was plenty. But our point is here, very simply, is that the United States is not always the best performing stock market. And when you fold in emerging markets at the bottom, so you're going to look at Finland, Greece, Indonesia, Peru, you can see that our rank drops further. So in other words, you're looking at the top 50 stock markets around the globe. You know, all in, our our rank on those individual years falls even further, because the top graph, of course, is just the developed stock markets. So, long story short, we don't have a stranglehold on the opportunity set. We don't have a stranglehold on performance. So, just thinking along those lines, it might behoove an investor to look globally. And there is still a lot of bad news globally, but there's still plenty of good news. And if you turn the page to page 8, you're going to see a map at the bottom with all the different country flags in which we have a research office. We have the largest global research footprint of any major money manager I'm aware of. So what does that really mean to you as an individual investor? We have what we call boots on the ground, doing the homework, trying to learn about these companies, or trying to learn about these bonds or these governments, and whether or not we might want to loan them money and put these bonds into our mutual funds. But it's not that we're exporting an MBA from Harvard or Yale or MIT to go learn about this stuff. What we're actually doing is we are hiring the local talent. Those individuals that grew up in the country or the region. They know the culture, the currencies, the politics, the mores of the region. They know what dark alley they need to go down to get an answer, and they certainly know what dark alley not to go down to learn an answer. We teach them to analyze stocks and bonds our way, And then we gain from their perspective because they know the regions better than we might know them sitting in New Jersey, California, or the Bahamas. And that's typically what we do each and every day. I'm going to pause there. This is just an outline. There's a ton of things we could talk about, but I'd like to open it up for just, 5 minutes if we have time for a question or two. Anything on your minds? Well, let me say this. As a firm, if you're to ask us how bullish we are or how positive we are about the stock markets moving forward, if you think about it in a 1-year time period, a 3-year time period, and a 5-year time period, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being really optimistic, the most we could be. On a 1-year basis, we're probably at about 5. On a 3-year basis, we're at about a 7. And on a 10-year basis, on a 3-year basis, we're at about a 7. And on a 5-year basis, we're probably a 9 or a 10. There is an awful lot of good news going on out there, like the manufacturing renaissance and the amount of oil being discovered today. Think of it this way, I'll leave you with this thought. There are 1.5 trillion barrels of oil that we are more or less aware of around the globe that we can get to. Due to the increase in drilling technologies and capabilities, fracking capabilities and technologies, and everything related to energy exploration and the clean, healthy extraction of that energy without polluting our environment, with those technologies that are either already here or almost here, we potentially could find another 1.2 trillion barrels of oil. So when you have a lot of supply, all right, and the demand is more or less the same, prices come down. That helps manufacturers. There is a manufacturing renaissance taking place right now as we speak. More jobs are coming back to the U.S. than ever before because we've had a 30-year run of exporting jobs because of cheap labor and cheaper energy costs abroad. That is changing. There are numerous companies that are doing this. And really what that means to all of us is more jobs, hopefully pay increases, unemployment comes down, and we have a domino effect on spending, consumption, home buying, cell phone purchases, et cetera, et cetera. And over time, that is something that we really could realistically see in the not too distant future. So there is a lot of good news. The catalysts, of course, are low energy costs and the manufacturing renaissance that is going on. And I could talk for hours on these topics, but I'm already out of time, so I'm going to stop. But thank you for paying attention, and I'll be around for a while to answer any questions.
Just so everybody knows, I got my business cards and some bios on myself up front. As I said, I do a lot of business with Franklin Templeton, and if you'd like to gain from their perspective and learn a little bit more about some of their individual funds out there, I'd be happy to take a phone call and meet with you one-on-one. So thanks again for coming in.
With Franklin Life, or is that 2 different companies?
2 different companies.
2 different companies.
Yeah, Franklin Life and Franklin Templeton Investments. Franklin Templeton Investments is owned by Franklin Resources,
Okay.
which is the parent company. Great question.
Thank you.